Andy Johnson, Minnesota State University. This is a workshop on what teachers should know about the science of reading and some other things. This will be a series of short videos, and these are the 7 areas I hope to go over in 7 short little video sessions. But first, one of my goals is to address 2 understandings related to reading and reading instruction. The first understanding is related to the science of reading and scientifically based reading research. There's an understanding of exactly what that entails. And the second great understanding is related to how the brain creates meaning with print. Goals. You'll be able to use some new pedagogical strategies. Now, I'm not trying to micromanage your reading instruction. I want you to be able to adopt and adapt the strategies that work for you. Like a hand inside the glove, these new ideas should fit with whatever curriculum or approach or program you're using. I value your knowledge and teacher expertise, and I want you to be able to use these to make choices about the strategies you'll use with your students. After all, you know your students, I don't. And of course, to better understand the process the brain uses to create meaning with print, and to better understand the science of reading. In the ideal teacher professional development, you would not be listening to a silly bald man on a digital recording of some sort, or even an after-school workshop. Effective teacher professional development is sustained and occurs over time. There's social interaction where you get to talk about ideas and interact with your colleagues and peers. New information and ideas are presented to you, and you're able to plan and try these ideas in your authentic teaching context, and you get feedback over time. That would be the ideal professional development. The closest we can come to that is the book club model. You've got my book, you've got my strategies. So as a group or a grade level, you'd identify an idea or strategy that you wanted to try to implement. And don't get overwhelmed. Focus on 1 or 2 new ideas, new strategies you want to get into your classroom. You'd plan, talk about it with your peers, get feedback on your plan from your peers. Why don't you try that? I don't know if that will work. I'm going to do this. You then try it out in your classroom, and you see how it works. You see what needs to be tweaked, changed, or whatever. Give her at least 2 weeks. You'd report back to your group, see how it went, get feedback, revise as necessary, and try it again, or try a new strategy. That would be ideal. That would bring these ideas directly into your classroom. It takes thoughtful literacy teachers to develop thoughtful literacy. We want our students to be engaged in thoughtful literacy, not simply responding letters and sounds, but reading is essentially a thinking process. We want to empower teachers as well to thoughtfully apply the strategies they get from me, my book, or from any program or method or curriculum or peso that you might be using. So, 2 important things before we get down to the science of reading. A teacher's number 1 job is to help children fall in love with books. After that, 98% of your job as a reading teacher takes care of itself, because students want to read. Reading is a pleasurable act. Sometimes it seems we do everything to get in the way of that, to make reading an unpleasurable act. That means we need to have lots of books at students' independent reading level and below. And since you have students 2 to 4 above and beyond, you need a wide variety of books at a wide variety of reading levels. How do you expect students to fall in love with books if they don't have good books to read? Could you imagine someone wanting to play the piano if they didn't have good music to play? And second, a teacher's number 2 job is not to frustrate or humiliate your kids. That means you need to have instruction that is meaningful versus meaningless, creating meaning with print. And instruction needs to be within students' zone of proximal development. That's just a little above their independent level, where they can complete a task with some scaffolding. So, big ideas 1 and 2. So let's get down to the science of reading. And I have 4 questions to think about as I go through this first section. What is the scientific method? How is science used to help us understand reading and reading instruction? What is a theory and why are they important? And what has been proven regarding the importance of word reading accuracy? So, the traditional view of science and the scientific process is this. You get 2 groups. You randomly assign participants to each group or subjects. You measure them before the study begins. You do something to one group and not the other. You control everything except that one thing, which is called the independent variable, and then you measure them after. If there's a difference in one thing and that difference is statistically significant, and statistically significant means greater than could be accounted for by chance, you can say with a certain amount of certainty that one thing caused the other. The thing that you did to the one group was the cause of the difference. And we are looking for causality, the endless search for causality. Single subject design, similar, except you have one group. You measure before and after. You do something to the one group. You measure after. If the difference between the pre and post is statistically significant, you can say that that thing, that treatment, was the cause of the difference. And again, the endless search for causality, what causes another thing to happen? In reading, we tend to think, what is the thing that causes reading scores to go up? Of course, there's a whole bunch of problems with that. But many people think of this as the scientific method. It's sometimes called controlled experimental research or controlled experimental studies. We want to be able to say with confidence that one thing is the cause of the other, that we have proved that it has worked using the scientific process. However, there is no such thing as the scientific process. Instead, there are methods of science. When controlled experimental research is used as the only method for studying reading, we get a view of reading reality that looks like we're looking at it through a peephole. It's a peephole-based reality. We view reading and reading instruction through that very narrow lens. And this seems silly, but this is exactly what the U.S. Department of Education and other groups have done. They have insisted that only controlled experimental research can be used to determine causality in reading and reading instruction. And this shows a great lack of understanding of research in the social sciences, of educational research. What they are saying is that the only method that counts for knowledge is that which is gained through controlled experimental research. The only knowledge that counts is that which is gained through controlled experimental research. And they are saying that the same methods used to study bacteria in a petri dish should be used to study children in a classroom. And they call this scientifically based reading research. It's an insular view of educational research. Calling it scientifically based research doesn't make it so. This peephole-based reading reality leads to a great ununderstanding of reading and the reading process. Now, controlled experimental research is a valuable tool. However, the exclusive use of this as a tool to look at reading instruction creates this very narrow tube, and you're missing a whole bunch of data that occurs outside that tube. And how can anything be said to be truly scientific if it purposely ignores a lot of data? And that's what this peephole view of reading reality does, that the U.S. Department of Education has called scientifically based reading research. This would be a good place to look at some reading instruction. Stephen Kusser. This bit of reading research would be dismissed by the U.S. Department of Education because it doesn't fall into those very narrow parameters. Yet this tells us much about reading and reading instruction. He was looking at the limitations of word reading accuracy. This 2016 study focused on word reading accuracy and comprehension of expository text. Now, starting in 4th grade, students encounter more expository text than narrative text. As you know, they move from learning to read to reading to learn. And expository text cannot be read in the same way as narrative text because they are different. In one sense, they have more lexical density. That's one way in which they are different. Lexical density means more content word, clauses, and concepts jammed into a sentence. So you can't read them the same way. The methodology. He used 4th grade students from 2 different schools. He examined students' miscues and how they related to comprehension as they were reading expository text. Now, a miscue is a mismatch in oral reading between what's on the page and what the student says. They're reading something orally out loud, and what comes out of their mouth is different from what's on the page. And there are 2 types of miscues, and we don't call them errors because miscues often represent mature reading behavior. There is a meaning disrupting miscue, and that is when the author's meaning is not maintained. It does not make sense. Meaning is disrupted. Instead of run to the top of the hill, the reader would say rat to the top of the hill. The author's intended meaning is disrupted. That is a meaning disrupting miscue. A meaning maintaining miscue is a miscue in which the author's intended meaning stays intact. It's not disrupted. It is maintained. If the text says run to the top of the hill, the reader says runs to the top of the hill or rush to the top of the hill. That intended meaning stays intact. It's a meaning maintaining miscue. And these are good things, and I'll explain that a little bit later. So the results of this study was this: that clauses with meaning maintaining miscues compared with clauses with no miscues, that students were significantly more likely to comprehend and recall clauses in which there were meaning maintaining miscues. Comparing the 2 types of clauses, one that's read with 100% word accuracy, and other that has meaning-maintaining miscues. The meaning-maintaining miscues were significantly more likely to be comprehended and recalled. Why is that? Well, a couple reasons. First of all, in the meaning-maintaining miscues, the reader has to generate an alternative way of expressing that idea. The reader is attending not to the surface structure, not to the arrangement of words, but to deep structure, the idea instead of the word. And that is a mature reading behavior. The reader is using semantic and syntactic information as well to create meaning. Semantic means context, syntactic means grammar and word order. Those are mature reading behaviors, even though the word reading accuracy is not there. Word reading accuracy, it's limited. Surface structure, deep structure, meaning. So 3 things. First of all, an over-reliance on phonics, letter-sound relationships can get in the way of comprehension, and that's the whole purpose for reading in the first place, to create meaning, to comprehend. The second idea, that should be a 2, instructional strategies that focus on maintaining the author's meaning are more important than strategies focusing on word reading and accuracy. And the third thing, the brain uses 3 cueing systems to recognize words while reading. Yes, the phonological or graphophonological, yes, we know that. But also the semantic cueing system and the syntactic cueing system, and I'll be talking about these, but including only strategies and instruction to develop the phonological cueing system severely impedes students' development as readers. So let's look at what a theory is and why they are used in science and the science of reading and reading instruction. A theory in the context of science is not a disproven or untested assumption. A theory is a way to explain a set of facts. It's used to understand and explain phenomena. Put another way, a theory is a dot-to-dot picture connecting the data dots. Each data dot is created by a research study. Different theories connect different data dots differently. Hence, you can have 2 or more theories explaining the same phenomenon differently. And we're going to be looking at 2 different theories in just a minute. 2 common theories of reading. Now, when we look at these 2 theories in the next video, I'll give you a little heads up. One theory connects a lot of data dots and explains a wide range of phenomena. The other ignores a lot of data dots and leaves much phenomena unexplained. One offers a more complete understanding of the phenomenon known as reading, and one offers a less complete understanding. So think about this. What is a scientific method? Well, there are methods of science. We see one example of how science helps us understand reading and the reading instruction. This was one study, one small data dot used to complete a theory. What is a theory? Why are they important? It helps us understand and explain phenomena. What has been proven important? Here's the thing about proving. Research does not prove things. What? No, research supports or discounts a hypothesis. And a hypothesis. So a hypothesis is supported or rejected. And based on the research, those data dots are used to create a theory. All right, we'll be looking at understanding reading in the next session.